Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan, and thank you very much for joining us for our Monday update for April the 17th. Well, this week across New Zealand and Australia, high pressure is the main driver of our weather. It brings a slightly cooler change to parts of Australia, but a warmer than average change to parts of New Zealand. And the tropics, no shortage of downpours and thunderstorms and low pressure up there at the moment. So we're going to cover all of those three regions. We'll kick off with the animated wind map for Monday. High pressure parked over the Chatham Islands at lunchtime on Monday. Now this high, which I'll refer to as high number 1, is going to be lingering around the east of New Zealand for the entire week ahead. And that placement with the anticyclonic winds means it's scooping up subtropical air and dropping it down across the country. On top of that, there's low pressure in the tropics, quite a large area of that. Now that's pulling down truly tropical air into places like Fiji and Vanuatu. Your temperatures are up at the moment, thunderstorms in that area. Over the next few days, low pressure is going to drift further over towards the Cook Islands, and high pressure from the Indian Ocean is coming into Australia. There's a weak high pressure zone already there, but a stronger one is coming in behind it. So really, high pressure is the main feature for New Zealand and Australia for the next week ahead. Now there's a little bit of wet weather. I talked about that low pressure zone up in the tropics. That's going to drive in a bit of rain into the Tasman Sea. So as high number 1, the one that's east of us, moves away slowly this week, some of that wet weather comes in behind it, and most of it looks focused around the South Island, especially the upper South Island, where rainfall totals are 70 to 90 millimetres for the next 3 days ahead. So that could cause a few slips and landslides, so take care if you're driving around at the moment. The roads are still recovering, obviously, from the floods of the last year or two. Not so much rain further down the west coast, and not so much in the North Island, although Wellington has 30 or 40 millimetres coming through. But most of this wet weather this week comes in around central areas, western parts around the country. So let's have a look at that rainfall. You can see it here lining up on our Tuesday map. Low pressure dominating in the tropics. Now, a lot of people ask me all the time, what does the red line mean? It measures air thickness. So the more humid and damp the air has become, the more likely you are to see that red line dropping down towards us. So that basically it shows you where the tropical air is, and you'll see a blue line down here. South of that, it's colder, drier, more like Antarctica. So north of that red line, more like the tropics. So when you're seeing that drop down, it's going around that low pressure zone in here. So that means Fiji, Vanuatu, and New Caledonia have some pretty hot weather at the moment, and more thunderstorms in the mix and downpours as a result of that low. But for New Zealand, a lot of northerly winds coming through, not as warm in the South Island, but certainly warmer than average still in a number of places. So let's move through this week. The main high out to the east, high number 1, it moves further away from New Zealand for a time and actually slowly drifts back again later in the week. So we're not done with it just because it's starting to move away. Low pressure up here stretching out to Tonga. Rarotonga seeing plenty of rain and thunderstorms and downpours there, and that hot humid weather now taking over Tonga for a time. New Zealand, you can see that rain sliding in behind high number 1. That's the reason why those rainfall totals around Nelson and Marlborough are high. And if you found that rain map confusing or you're just not quite sure, just go to our websites, Weather Watch or ruralweather.co.nz. We've got your hyper local rainfall totals there anyway, so you don't need the maps. They're really just for the big picture. There's another area of high pressure in here. I'm not really talking about that one so much. It's not very dominant. That's the next main one coming in from the Indian Ocean. So by Thursday, that high starts to cover a large portion of Australia, but it's got a slightly cooler airflow to the south here. So Adelaide, Melbourne, says Torquay, lucky people in Torquay, you're more important than Melbourne, and Hobart. Those 3 places will feel a temperature drop, and by the end of the day, you'll also notice that in Sydney with a couple of showers and southeasterlies, New Zealand still has the warm airflow for the most part, certainly around the North Island and the top of the South Island. That's a light westerly down in Southland. Now, by the end of the week, low pressure is mostly focused around the Cook Islands. So you'll notice out here around Rarotonga, that's the main area of low pressure, and that red line starting to go back northwards again as sort of a more normal weather pattern starts to return, thanks to these big highs, number 1 and number 2 there over the top of Adelaide. So still temperatures down a little bit in Sydney with a few showers coming through for you. And by Saturday, that next high pretty much dominates Victoria and a big chunk of New South Wales, but you can still see that east to southeasterly flow carrying on. That actually comes out of the New Zealand area, but in New Zealand itself, we still have the northerly flow coming down, at least for the North Island, but the South Island now has a slight taste of that cooler airflow. Nothing major, but temperatures just down a little bit closer to where they normally would be for this time of the year. But the North Island, warmer than average pretty much day and night for the whole week ahead. That is all from me. Good to be back again after the weekend. We'll see you again tomorrow, Tuesday, with our next update.